I feel like we have all been there at some point. You are sitting in your car, stuck in just like absolute gridlock traffic.
Oh, yeah, the absolute worst.
Right. And you are trapped underneath this massive, ugly concrete overpass. I want you to really just picture that space for a second.
Lots of gray.
So much gray. Everything is gray. The smell of exhaust is just sort of lingering in the air. The noise of those heavy transport trucks echoing off the concrete wall is completely deafening.
It literally vibrates right through your windows.
Yes, exactly. And there is like zero natural light, just that eerie orange glow of the street lamps, and you just cannot wait to hit the gas and get out of there.
Yeah, it's a completely hostile environment.
It really is. But what if tearing down that overpass wasn't just about fixing the traffic you're stuck in? What if it was actually about rescuing an entire community of people who are physically, quite literally, trapped inside it?
I love that perspective because it completely flips the script on how we view infrastructure.
Right.
We usually look at a highway and just see utility. It's a way to get from point A to point B.
Right.
But for the people living in the shadow of that highway or underneath it, it is so much more than just a road.
It dictates their whole reality.
Exactly. It dictates how they live. It dictates where they can walk, who they can interact with, and even, honestly, the air they breathe.
Which is exactly what we are exploring in today's deep dive. We are looking at this really fascinating and honestly incredibly ambitious planning document. It's sourced from wikiresidence.ca and infodrone.ca. And the project is called the Reconstruction de l'échangeur Saint-Pierre à Lachine, which is the Saint-Pierre Interchange down in Lachine, Montreal.
Right, a massive undertaking.
Huge. And our mission today is to figure out how a massive road reconstruction project is actually functioning as a massive urban surgery operation designed to heal a fractured city.
Urban surgery is such a great term for it.
Yeah, I love that phrasing from the sources. So, okay, let's unpack this. We usually think of highways as ways to get out of town, right? But for the people living near this specific interchange, it is the exact thing keeping them locked in.
That is the perfect way to frame it. Because before we can really understand the cure being proposed by the city, we have to thoroughly examine the disease.
The concrete disease.
Right. Why is this specific piece of road in Montreal so uniquely problematic? To understand that, we actually have to look back to when it was commissioned, which was 1966.
1966. So like the absolute golden age of the automobile.
Oh, totally. Gasoline was cheap, suburbs were booming, and cars were just the undisputed kings of the road.
Nobody was really thinking about bike lanes back then.
Not at all. And you could see that very specific mid-century philosophy in every single inch of this structure. The Saint-Pierre Interchange is a complete concrete behemoth. It is important to visualize this properly for the listeners.
Yeah, paint a picture for us.
So it is not just one simple, elegant overpass resting on a few pillars. It is a really complex combination of aerial structures and what the planning documents call an elevated trench on the ground.
No, wait, an elevated trench?
Yeah.
Just that phrase sounds imposing, almost like some sort of military fortification. But how can a trench be elevated? That almost sounds like an oxymoron.
It's a great point because it essentially functions exactly like a fortress wall. Instead of a bridge deck elevated on slender concrete columns that you could, say, see through or walk under,
Right.
an elevated trench consists of two massive, solid concrete retaining walls built directly on the ground. Then, the space between those two sheer walls is entirely filled with compacted earth and rubble, and the highway is paved right on top of that dirt.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. So to anyone on the ground level, it is an impenetrable, solid, continuous block of concrete and earth.
That is crazy. So it's not a bridge you can walk under at all. It is quite literally a man-made mountain range of concrete cutting straight through a neighborhood.
Precisely. And this interchange is a vital beating artery for the whole region. We are talking about approximately 130,000 vehicles passing through it every single day.
130,000? That's a lot of cars.
It is. And it is not just commuters and small sedans heading to the office either. It carries a very high proportion of heavy industrial freight.
Right, because of where it's located.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It connects incredibly important economic hubs. You've got downtown Montreal, the Trudeau International Airport, the West Island, and the South Shore via the Honoré Mercier Bridge.
Oh.
It is doing massive, heavy lifting for the region's economy.
But I mean, doing all that heady regional lifting comes at a really severe local cost. The sources describe this phenomenon, they call it the Saint-Pierre Island effect.
Yeah, that island effect is brutal.
Because you have this massive, solid concrete trench sitting right on the ground, and then it is coupled with the sprawling approaches from Highway 20, and then on top of all that, you add in active railway tracks to the north and to the west.
It forms this suffocating physical barrier completely surrounding the residential neighborhood of Saint-Pierre.
It's basically a geographical trap.
It really is. When you look at the urban planning of the 1960s, it routinely prioritized regional vehicle flow over local livability. The ultimate goal was moving cars as quickly as possible from the new suburbs to the city center.
And if a working-class neighborhood happened to be in the way?
Well, it was either paved over entirely or, in this specific case, completely boxed in. They created literal islands out of residential neighborhoods.
So what does this all mean for you if you actually live there today? Let's say you just want to walk to a grocery store in the next neighborhood over.
Good luck.
Right. It means that right now, if you are a resident, you only have 2 escape routes. 2. Think about the sheer scale of that. An entire neighborhood with only 2 ways out.
It's really hard to fathom.
You've got Saint-Pierre Avenue, which literally dives under a dark section of the interchange, and Saint-Jacques Street, which leads toward Montreal West. They basically built an accidental medieval moat around this neighborhood. Except, instead of water, it's made of solid, concrete, active railway tracks and 18-wheeler transport trucks just thundering past all day.
The underlying logic here really reveals how the physical space dictates the social reality. When you have an environment that is practically impassable except by car, you instantly degrade the quality of life for everyone inside it.
You definitely discourage walking.
You discourage walking, you discourage community cohesion, and you completely isolate the local economy because nobody from the outside wants to cross that moat to visit your local businesses.
Right. Why would I drive through a terrifying underpass to buy a coffee if I don't have to?
Exactly. The physical footprint of that solid concrete trench sitting directly on the ground is the root cause of the isolation.
So if the root of the disease is this solid, earth-filled concrete wall sitting directly on the neighborhood's chest, the only way to cure it is to lift that weight completely off the ground.
Which brings us to the proposed solution.
Right. How do you move 130,000 cars a day without crushing the neighborhood beneath them?
This is where the Ministère des Transports et de la Mobilité Durable, the MTND, comes in. They have officially moved this mega project into the planning phase. And the radical solution they have chosen is to rebuild the interchange using entirely aerial structures.
Entirely in the air, like no more dirt-filled retaining walls.
Entirely. They want to completely eliminate that ground-level elevated trench and move the massive volume of traffic up onto pillars in the sky. The primary goal is to clear the ground space beneath the highway, basically giving the land back to the city level.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, but honestly, this is where I feel like I need to push back a bit on behalf of the listener.
Okay, go for it.
Because I'm trying to picture this from the perspective of someone actually living in Saint-Pierre. Doesn't putting a massive multi-lane highway entirely up in the sky just create a giant, noisy umbrella over the neighborhood?
Right, that is a very common concern.
Like, if I live there, how does having 130,000 cars and heavy transport trucks flying 30 feet over my head actually help me on the ground? Doesn't the noise and the pollution just kind of rain down on everyone?
That is the exact right question to ask, and it is the most valid concern with new aerial infrastructure. But to understand how they solve this, we have to look at the mechanics of modern acoustic engineering.
Okay.
They aren't just, hoisting the cars into the air and hoping for the best. To silence an aerial highway today, you have to actively engineer the underside of that deck.
What does that actually mean, practically?
Well, it involves installing specialized acoustic baffles that trap the sound waves before they can bounce down to the street level. It involves using sound-absorbing materials on the retaining pillars themselves.
So the pillars absorb the noise?
Yes. And they're also angling the deck barriers so that engine noise is directed upward into the sky rather than downward into people's living rooms.
Oh, wow. I see. So it's active acoustic engineering, not just pouring a concrete bridge and crossing your fingers.
Exactly. Yeah. Furthermore, the ground itself plays a massive role.
Really? How so?
If you plant specific, dense vegetation and trees directly beneath and around the structures, those organic shapes physically scatter and absorb whatever sound waves do manage to make it down.
Oh, that makes sense. The leaves break up the sound.
Right. So Elevating the structure is merely step one. It is not about simply moving the cars up. It is about what moving the cars up allows you to do with the ground down below.
Freeing up that ground space is the prerequisite for everything else.
It's the prerequisite for the entire social transformation, yes.
So it's basically about getting a blank canvas. But this canvas isn't going to be blank tomorrow, right? And what is the actual timeline here?
Well, heavy construction isn't anticipated to really begin until toward the end of the decade. Currently, they are deep in the planning phase, working through public consultations and developing what is called the reference concept.
The reference concept, that being the master blueprint, essentially, like the final design everything will be based on.
Precisely. And that master blueprint has to survive the BE.
The BEE.
Yeah, in Quebec, the BEE stands for the Bureau d'Audience Publique sur l'Environnement. And this is not just some bureaucratic rubber stamp.
Right.
It is a rigorous, deeply analyzed, and often highly contentious public hearing process where the environmental and social impacts of the project are scrutinized by independent experts and, of course, the public.
And in the meantime, while everyone is debating this blueprint, the source material notes that the MTMV is spending several $1 million annually on preventative and recurring interventions just to keep the current 1966 structure from literally falling apart.
Yeah, the maintenance costs are staggering.
Millions of dollars a year just on Band-Aids until they can finally do the actual surgery.
Which really highlights just how critical this infrastructure is and how far past its structural prime it really is. But let's return to the concept of the surgery itself, because that metaphor from the sources is incredibly apt.
Okay, let's dive into that.
If the old, elevated concrete trench is a hardened plaque completely blocking a major artery, the neighborhood surrounding it is the tissue that is suffocating from a lack of circulation.
Wow, yeah.
The new aerial structure is the bypass.
Right. And by performing that bypass, by freeing up all that ground space, this project is designed to break the isolation. It physically reconnects the Saint-Pierre residential neighborhood to the rest of the borough.
Blood flow returns to the tissue.
Exactly. But this raises an important concept about how we define that blood flow, right? Mobility in a modern city isn't just about cars anymore.
Not at all. The new ground-level design completely rethinks mobility for the people who actually live there. They are planning dedicated access for public transit and, crucially, for active transportation.
Active transportation meaning bikes and walking.
Yes. That means safe, dedicated bike paths and wide, well-lit pedestrian corridors that simply cannot exist when a solid concrete wall is blocking the way.
I mean, think about the darkest, loudest underpass in your city right now. You know the exact one I'm talking about.
We all have one.
Right. It feels unsafe, it smells like exhaust, it's covered in grime. You avoid walking there at night at all costs. Now imagine that same physical space completely transformed. The concrete wall is gone.
Replaced by air and light.
Yes. The heavy traffic is routed onto acoustically baffled pillars high above. And the ground level is now a quiet, green park with wide bike lanes and walkways connecting you directly to the next neighborhood over.
It's a night and day difference.
They are essentially taking a hostile concrete wasteland and turning it into a community living room.
I love that phrase. And the authorities aren't just doing road engineering here. They are surgically removing a blockage to restore life to the urban fabric. And they aren't just guessing at what the community wants for that living room either.
No.
No. They initiated real citizen consultations back in 2022. And those consultations are serving as the actual foundation for the quality of life improvements.
Improvements like the aggressive noise mitigation measures we talked about earlier, but also what the document calls the greening of residual spaces.
The shift in philosophy here is really striking. Back in 1966, the space under the highway was just dead space. It was a completely ignored byproduct of moving cars.
Just dirt and shadows.
Exactly. Today, urban planners view that residual space as a vital public asset. If you design it right, with the proper acoustic engineering and dense landscaping, it goes from being a place you actively avoid to a place you actually want to spend time in.
Okay, so let's summarize where we are. We are talking about tearing down an earth-filled concrete fortress, putting a multi-lane highway up in the sky with high-tech acoustic baffles, building parks and bike paths underneath it, and completely revitalizing an isolated community.
That's the plan.
That sounds genuinely amazing, but it also sounds incredibly, almost unfathomably expensive. And frankly, knowing how government mega projects usually work, it sounds like a recipe for a decade of absolute traffic nightmares.
You're absolutely right to be skeptical on on that front. Reconnecting a neighborhood and building parks isn't just a feel-good social exercise. It is an enormous, highly disruptive undertaking.
It's massive.
The source estimates this type of infrastructure megaproject at hundreds of millions of dollars, possibly even exceeding $1 billion, funded entirely by provincial public money.
Wow, $1 billion.
Yeah, and the disruption during construction, the whole killing the patient during surgery risk, is immense.
I mean, $1 billion is a massive investment.
Yeah.
And we all know the history of public infrastructure mega projects. They are notoriously bad at staying on budget, and they almost always blow past their deadlines because of unforeseen complications.
Which is exactly why the government is opting for a completely different approach to getting this built. Instead of the traditional sequential approach that usually leads to those exact delays and budget overruns, they are using what is called a collaborative delivery model.
Let's really explore that, because I found this detail in the source document super fascinating. The partners involved in this massive consortium include the MTMD as the owner, plus the City of Montreal, the boroughs of Lachine and the Saint-Pierre, and the municipality of Montreal West.
Right, lots of cooks in the kitchen.
Lots of cooks. But the really unique part is how they're choosing to handle the designers and the builders.
Right, because under the traditional system, the government draws up a plan, then they put it out to tender, an engineering firm wins the bid, then months later, an architect gets involved.
Right, very linear.
Exactly. And finally, maybe a year after that, a construction company is hired to build a plan they had absolutely no hand in designing. It is rigidly sequential.
Which seems crazy for something this complex.
It is. Under this collaborative approach, even though the specific consortium hasn't been chosen yet, the engineering, architecture, and construction firms will all be integrated from the very genesis of the design phase. They will all sit at the same table on day one.
Wait, so normally the designers, engineers, and builders work sequentially. That is insane to me.
That's how it's been done for decades.
That is like writing a massive Hollywood movie script, locking it in, and only introducing the director and the lead actors on the very day you start filming.
That is a brilliant analogy.
No wonder things go over budget. Nobody is talking to each other until it's too late. Bringing everyone into the same room at the genesis makes so much more sense.
Exactly. Think about the friction in that traditional model. The architect designs a beautiful sweeping curve for an off-ramp. Then the engineer looks at it 6 months later and says, that's structurally impossible.
Right.
Then the construction firm gets the revised plans a year after that and says, this is going to cost 3 times what you budgeted to actually pour this much concrete over active train tracks.
And then they spend years fighting, and the budget skyrockets.
Yes. By forcing everyone into the same room on day one, they can iterate in real time.
So the builder can look at the architect's drawing and immediately say, hey, if we adjust this angle by 2 degrees, we save $20 million in materials.
Precisely. It is essential for a project of this complexity. You need everyone working together simultaneously to figure out how to best mitigate that noise, how to manage the massive water runoff from an aerial structure, and how to execute the surgery without completely crippling the city's traffic for 10 years.
Right, you can't just shut down the main artery for a decade.
Exactly. It is designed to stimulate architectural and environmental innovation while keeping costs grounded.
And as massive as that $1 billion price tag is, there is a massive macroeconomic domino effect that actually justifies spending that kind of money. Building the road is really just the catalyst.
If we connect this to the wider economic picture, the physical road is simply the key unlocking the door. The source material makes a very bold, definitive statement. The complete overhaul of this interchange is the absolute prerequisite for the redevelopment of the entire Lachine-Est sector.
Lachine-Est, I actually looked this up while reading the sources.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, the document calls it one of the largest future eco-neighborhoods in all of Canada. We are talking about converting a massive historic industrial sector into a highly sustainable, modern residential and commercial hub.
And if you don't fix the Saint-Pierre interchange, that multi-billion-dollar eco-neighborhood simply cannot happen.
Wait, really? It's that dependent on it?
Totally dependent. Real estate developers are not going to invest billions of dollars in a new sustainable neighborhood if the only way to access it is through a crumbling, congested, noisy 1966 concrete trench.
Yeah, that's not a great selling point for a condo.
Exactly. The transportation fluidity and the aesthetic improvement provided by the new aerial interchange are what guarantee the future attractiveness and financial viability of the entire area.
So the government spends $1 billion on the interchange, which then unlocks several billion more in private real estate and economic development. The sources point out that by removing the visual and physical nuisances of the old concrete fortress, property values in all the adjacent areas will increase significantly.
Because you are suddenly living next to a green space instead of a truck route.
Exactly. It initiates a total transformation of the real estate landscape. The Lachine-Est sector plans to add thousands of new housing units. And critically, this isn't just luxury condos.
Right. It's a mess.
Yes, this includes a mandated mix of social housing, affordable housing, and private market units. You are essentially building a small city right next door, and you absolutely need a modern, efficient, and community-friendly interchange to support that kind of population density.
Plus, you have the immediate economic impact of the surgery itself. A construction site of this magnitude is going to generate hundreds of direct and indirect jobs over several years.
Oh, of course.
You have engineers, laborers, urban planners, and local suppliers, all providing a massive stimulus to the local economy while they are physically building the infrastructure for the future economy.
It perfectly illustrates how all these pieces fundamentally interlock. You cannot have the sustainable, green, eco-neighborhood of the future without first fixing the decaying industrial-era infrastructure that currently chokes the area.
The urban surgery on the interchange clears the plaque and restores the blood flow.
Right, which then allows the surrounding tissue, the thousands of new housing units, the new local businesses, the new community spaces, to finally grow and thrive.
So when we step back and look at the whole picture, it is clear that a highway project doesn't have to just be an engineering math problem about finding a slightly faster way to move 130,000 cars.
It can be so much more.
When it is planned collaboratively, when it actively utilizes acoustic engineering, and when it prioritizes the ground-level experience of the pedestrian over the convenience of the regional commuter, it can actually heal a historically divided city.
It can spark massive economic revitalization.
Yes, and it creates the literal physical foundation for sustainable eco-neighborhoods that will house thousands of people.
It is a perfect, striking reminder that infrastructure is destiny. The physical structures we choose to build directly dictate how we are allowed to interact with our neighbors, how our local economies function, and ultimately the quality of our daily lives.
We really are moving from an era where infrastructure was designed to violently conquer the landscape to an era where it is being meticulously redesigned to integrate with and elevate the community.
It really makes you think differently the next time you are sitting in traffic underneath one of those concrete behemoths. And it leaves me with a lingering thought for you, the listener, to mull over. This Saint-Pierre interchange, this massive concrete trench that has trapped a neighborhood and now requires $1 billion surgery just to fix, well, it was celebrated as a total modern marvel of engineering when it was built in 1966.
It was the absolute pinnacle of progress.
It was the future. Yet today, we have to spend incredible amounts of time, money, and collaborative effort just to undo the social isolation it caused. It makes you wonder. Take a look around your own city today. What shiny, massive, state-of-the-art infrastructure project is being built right now that our grandchildren will have to creatively tear down and heal 60 years from now?
Thank you for watching this video. For more news and in-depth reports, visit wikiresidence.ca. All our content is available in text and audio formats across all your devices. Please feel free to share